I wanted to reiterate that we are building a labyrinth outside this window. It is going to go from the pillars to the fence. If you've never walked a labyrinth, that is sacred geometry, and it is transformative. You step your foot on that path with intention. You set your foot on that path with whatever you're struggling or wrestling with. And taking those conscious steps, you find clarity. You find comfort. You find divine wisdom just dropping into your head. So we absolutely need some help because the ground is canted about like this. So we need to take out a lot of soil to make the ground like this. Okay? And we don't want to do it in August. So there is a sign-up form back there. I will be there getting dirty with all of you. Now, without further ado, my friend Marvin has agreed to come. I know I've been telling you about his incredible book, Erasmus Joseph Lion. We've been waiting for it. I've been bugging him for months about it, and I've got copies. There are copies in the bookstore. He will be here to talk about it today, and you'll be hooked. So I don't think I have enough copies for everyone. You might want to beat it over there quick. Come on, Marvin.
Well, happy Palm Sunday, everybody. Gina, your rendition of Jesus Christ Superstar, that was so beautiful. That was my second favorite album in the 60s behind Sgt. Pepper. Oh, yeah. And your meditation, and Dee, your reading was really very inspirational, very good. So, happy, what is it, Palm Sunday. I so wanted to tell a joke on Palm Sunday, but I had nothing church appropriate. So I combed the internet, and I still couldn't find anything. And the one I found wasn't church appropriate. So I have some Adam and Eve jokes from when I was doing stand-up. Anybody want to hear a couple silly jokes? What did Adam say the night before Christmas? It's Christmas Eve. All right. I didn't say they were good. Adam and Eve are in an argument, and Adam gets really upset with Eve, and he starts pointing at her, and he says, "Eve, I want you to know that I wear the plants in the family." And when Eve got upset, she said, "Adam, don't you ever talk to me like that." And Adam said, "I'm sorry, Eve. I promise I'm going to turn over a new leaf." All right. Hey, I had to get something out of me here. So I want to thank you, Gina, Reverend Gina. You're a big supporter of my book, and I really appreciate the kindness in helping me promote it. Thank you so much. So I'm going to discuss the book today. It's just been released on Amazon about a month ago. It's generated quite a few five-star reviews. And honestly, I never thought I'd be saying this, but I'm an author of a book now that embraces many of the key learnings of my spiritual path: meditation, religious science, and A Course in Miracles. The book title is Erasmus Joseph Lion, A Spiritual Awakening. And instead of me preaching my philosophy, I set it up where animals and other different species on the dark savanna and in the jungles of Africa interact and speak these concepts. This is done with the idea that all living things, animals, humans, insects, trees, even aliens, are connected to an unconditional loving God. I'm going to tell you how I got the idea for the book, and a little bit about myself and how I came to write it. And I'm going to read from different chapters of the book. Okay, so let's see, where did I go here? All right. So it deals with the hero of our story, and his name is Erasmus Joseph Lion. And he decides he doesn't want to kill or eat other animals again. And he goes on a spiritual odyssey to find the meaning of life. And along the path, he finds a lot of other colorful animals that feel the same way. And it's a roller coaster ride, both through heartbreak and humor, and along with spiritual insight. He learns to confront and deal with his lower mind, and he sees the world through a more loving and forgiving eyes, with help from inner guidance. So what I want to do is give you an idea of why I wrote the book, a little bit about how I read it, and read some parts of selected chapters to give you an overview and see if it might resonate with you. I'm sure some of you remember the book, not Erasmus Joseph, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, right? Bestseller, 1970, written by Richard Bach. And when I read that book, well, the book was about a seagull just flying around, and he was tired of living a small life, a meaningless life, just hanging around for scraps of food. And what he does is he decides to fly higher and faster, and he gets into this game about having a life, a different life. And when I read that book, I had this thought right then: what if there was a lion in the middle of the jungle that didn't want to eat or kill other animals again? And the name Erasmus Joseph Lion came to me. Well, I wasn't a writer, and I didn't have any idea, and it just was a thought. It didn't mean anything to me, because how are you going to have a lion in the middle of the jungle that doesn't want to kill or eat other animals again? It was an impossible idea. So it just passed by. Well, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, what he does is he continues to fly higher and higher, and the elders of the seagull ship kick him out because they think he's too weird. And what he does, eventually, other seagulls come to his way of thinking. Well, I told you I got the idea reading it, and I still didn't know anything about it. At that time, there was no internet, so it wasn't easy to research lions. And I would have to spend hours at the library, and I didn't even know at the time that lions lived in a group called the Pride. That was completely foreign to me. The only thing I had ever written at the time, in 1968, after JFK, ML King, and then Robert King got assassinated, I wrote a page because I just felt so bad about what was going on in the country. And also in 1968, I wrote a letter to God because I was feeling so depressed, and it actually helped me. So fast forward, 2020, 43 years, oh, I forgot to tell you, I did write a screenplay in 1977. It was pretty horrible. Didn't do any promoting. It got in my hands the week that Elvis died, and the same week my script died also. So it was a quick little trip there. Okay, fast forward, 2020, 43 years later, never wrote anything. I'm sitting in the park. COVID is raging. You can't talk, you can't be with friends, you can't go to restaurants, you can't go to church, the library's closed. So I'm sitting in my car reading, and a car pulls in, and it's playing the loudest and dirtiest rap music you ever heard. I mean, it was every word. Mother, the woman's C word, the N word, pig. And I'm like, what? Now, there's a place for all kinds of music, but not at the park blasting like that. And I'm thinking, isn't there anything better than that? Isn't there some kind of something? And then a voice in my head says, well, why don't you write something? So I said, oh, okay. So anyway, I go over there, and I'm thinking it's a bunch of gangbangers. If I go over there, they're going to kill me. But at the time, my hair was a little longer, and I had a long beard, and I looked like I was homeless. And most of the people at the park thought I was homeless. All the guys that would sleep in the cars, they'd see me, hey, bro, I was one of the bros there. So I'm thinking, hey, you know what? Maybe they won't kill me. They'll think I'm one of the homeless people. So I kind of slip by the car, and to my surprise, what do I see? 2 young white girls in some kind of crazy trance. I'm going, what? What is this? So I knew I had to do something. So after I get through that shock, I went home and I said, you know what? I'm going to write something. And I thought, I wanted to write something that was uplifting. And being a student in the Course in Miracles, I wanted to write something that I felt was more positive and loving. So I went home and I wrote very quickly what I thought, to my way of thinking, was a good spiritual poem. And the words were the major themes in the Course in Miracles, dealing with a dualistic mind of fear and love. And then I got into it, and I started to really enjoy it, and started writing quite a bit. And I called my writing philosophy rap. But when I read it to my wife and son, my son said, "You sound like you're preaching a sermon." And I said, "Hey, you know what? I am preaching a sermon." So I kind of liked it, so I started calling my writing sermon rap. So I wrote a lot of sermon raps. Now, I have a place in Leisure World in Seal Beach with my brother, and I joined the creative writing class there. And it seemed like my other classmates enjoyed my writing too. So I wound up writing about 300 different ideas and concepts: fiction, nonfiction, poems, rhymes, anything that popped into my head. And somehow, the idea that I had filed away many years ago, Erasmus Joseph Lion, popped into my head. But I still had no idea how a lion living in the middle of a savanna could make it through without eating. How could he survive? What would he live on? So it was just an idea, and I wrote 800 or 1,000 words, but I didn't feel complete. So I went to the library, and I got the original Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And to my surprise, the book was 95 pages. 45 were pictures of seagulls, and 5 were blank pages. There was only 45 pages of writing. So I counted the words, approximately 9,000 words. I had about 1,200. I was thinking, can I write 9,000 words? I'd never written that much. So I figured I'd give it a shot. And I found out that if you write 50,000 words, it's called a novella. And I wanted to write a novel, and it had to be over 50,000 words. And I didn't just want to write fillers, just nothing, nonsense. So I started writing, and what do you know? 5 months later, 85,000 plus words, Erasmus Joseph Lion was born. Now, with my golden mind of writing a little more every day, I didn't have any characters, and I tried to end each chapter sort of like a bit of a cliffhanger, where the characters either had a problem or they were in danger, and I had to find a way to get them out of the dilemma, which made it fun and kept me engaged. In the process of writing, the animals started to take me over, and they knew what to say better than I did, and they knew what they wanted to express, and they started to write the story themselves. And voila, I wrote the unimaginable: a lion living on the plains of Africa without ever eating and killing another animal again. Now, there would have to be a bit of fantasy to make it happen, but I saw how to do it. And I pieced it together little by little, and the novel came. Now, I had several people ask me, how did you come up with the names of the characters and the places, like the three-headed snake and the Vapor King and Aristotle, the big-headed gorilla, and Barry J. Buzzard, and the cave with only one answer, and the rainbow trees, and the field of kissing trees? They just came to me. A person that had read the book recently came up to me and told me that that was the best ending of any book that he had ever read. Well, that made me feel pretty good. Now, before I read a little bit from the chapters, I know all of you have been on your own personal journey through life, and to try and find a path to make you more happier and more meaningful. And maybe some of you will resonate with my lifetime experiences. When I was young, I was always asking myself the big questions. Who am I, and what am I doing here? Nothing seemed to mean anything to me. It was just, yeah, there were a few things that you should do, but nothing really meant anything. So I had many early lifetime experiences, like the people who have the near-death experiences. Excuse me. As a child, many times I experienced being a free spirit, outside my body. I could elevate myself up through my head, but it wasn't under my control. It would just happen randomly, and I'd be looking at my body from outside my body. I'm not hallucinating here, and it was the most glorious feeling I've ever had in this lifetime. And I know, as I do know now, that the body is not who we really are. I had the ability to separate and fly around. And in my life, I've read thousands of books, listened to hundreds and hundreds of tapes, webinars, podcasts on many pathways to find a more meaningful and better way of thinking and living. And although I may not have a technical degree in these areas of expertise, like someone who's an academic with much book learning, I have lived a life, I believe, that brings a wealth of firsthand information and experience and understanding to the subject that I write about in my book. After all, I know that we are all eternal spiritual beings, and although body death is certain, the real us, an eternal spirit, can never die. And with that reality, a lot of new possibilities can open up, and the animals in the book also discover this. When I first wrote the book, the main character is Erasmus Joseph Lion. He was very dark because I wanted to contrast him with going to the light and going from being a brutal, vicious beast to one of love and kindness. But to my surprise, my wife was the first to read the chapter, and she told me she doesn't like it and she doesn't want to read it. You know, that's not a good take when your wife doesn't want to read your book, right? I tried to convince her. He has to go through darkness to find the light. And I tried to fight for this way, that this is the way it has to be. She wasn't buying it. I'm not going to read that book. What? All right. I did want to take her honest viewpoint. I didn't want to overwhelm her, like be a man and just rip the woman's viewpoint away. You know, I didn't want to do anything like that. So I took her feelings into consideration. I wrote a lady that I knew that was into spiritual thought, and I asked her if I could send the first draft of my manuscript unedited, and if she would read it. And she said, yes, I would love to read it. Please send it to me. She was very excited. So I sent it to her, and note to myself, lighten it up. I went to an author writing, and where an author was giving a talk. There were 90 people that went to his talk. 85 were women. I said, women don't like darkness. So I had to lighten it up a bit. So I will say there is some darkness in it, which propels Erasmus Joseph Lion to go on his journey to find a more meaningful life, and eventually his quest to find the answer to life. So I will read a few parts of different chapters, and I will end with a poem in the book that Reverend Gina told me she liked. So this is chapter 1, how the book starts out. I'll read a couple paragraphs, and then I'll tell you a little more about it. So it starts off with the first chapter, There Must Be a Better Way. Erasmus Joseph Lion was joyfully playing in the grass with his beloved grand cub, Daisy Strawberry. They nuzzled each other, rolling around and filling the air with joyful sounds. Smiling, she looked up at him and said, I love you, Grandpapa. See, I lightened it up a bit. Erasmus replied warmly, and I love you too, little Daisy Strawberry. He cherished these moments of happiness, a welcome break from the demands of hunting and his responsibilities as leader of a large pride. He understood that such moments were fleeting and should be treasured. Later that day, Erasmus returned to the serious business of being a lion. Life on the savannah was unpredictable. All creatures knew that change could happen at any time and without any warning. On this particular day, something unusual did happen to Erasmus, something later that would haunt him. So now I'm not reading now, but what haunted him was he took a life of an innocent animal for no other reason
that he was bigger and stronger, and now he feels guilty. He makes a drastic decision, and he decides he will never kill or eat another animal ever again. He tells his beloved and devoted wife, Mary Sue Lion, that he's going to leave the pride and find a more meaningful life. And in the dream, he said in a dream, he felt he was contacted by one of the ancients of the lion pride from thousands of moons ago that also had the same experience and found a happy, alternative way of life. And his wife said she will go with him, even though they both knew the journey would be treacherous, and if they don't eat, that they, the predator, can easily now become the prey. As the chapter closes, Mary Sue says, "I'm so afraid, Erasmus." Erasmus replied, "I have the same fear as you, Mary Sue. However, a message came to my mind that brings me some hope, though I'm still struggling to understand it. It said, there's a power within us greater than our fear, and somehow that gives me some relief." "I like that too," Mary Sue replied. Now, I'm going to read from chapter 3. It says we're starving. It's the chapter meeting the three-headed snake. And he's a very, very interesting character. And the subtitle is, "We're Starving to Death." So Erasmus and Mary Sue now are starving to death. They're skin and bones. They don't look like lions anymore. They look like little dogs. They shrunk up, they haven't eaten, they're not going to kill, and they're going to die. So now I'm going to read from this section. With their stomachs growling loudly from hunger pains, Mary Sue said, "I can't move anymore, my love. I'm so tired and hungry." She asked if he ever envisioned their life ending like this. Erasmus couldn't answer as the sadness and guilt he was feeling on leading Mary Sue, the love of his life, on her death march was unbearable. The sun was baking down on them in the savannah, and if they didn't die of starvation, they would surely die of thirst. They were barely conscious and were preparing for the dark curtain to close as they could feel their bodies eating up whatever fat they had stored up during their lifetimes. Their reserve food tank had hit below empty, and they were starting to go into hallucination mode. Erasmus, he heard a noise like psst, 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 like someone was trying to get his attention. Of course, he thought it was Mary Sue, but she was in deep unconsciousness. And then again he heard psst, psst, psst. I'm not too good on the pisses, but he was barely able to lift his head when he saw something in his line of vision that made him sure he was hallucinating. It was a three-headed snake. He couldn't believe he was seeing it, but almost too weak to talk, the snake spoke first and said, "You're not hallucinating, Professor. We are a three-headed snake." Erasmus used his lion survival skills to think that they or it were docile and weren't going to try to kill him. But then again, he thought, these new model smaller snakes could have a poisonous bite. But he thought that he and Mary Sue were 98% already dead. What's the difference? "Have you ever seen a three-headed snake?" the middlehead asked Erasmus. He shook his head ever so slightly. "Well, we actually used to be a two-headed snake, but evolution changed us, our species. You see, as a two-headed snake, we would fight all the time when we were not hunting for food to kill. We would try and kill each other. It was a horrible experience. We were two-sided, and we always fought and were in opposition and contrast over everything. But not anymore." Erasmus managed to get a few words out, but inside he was actually laughing. He asked this question, "So the third head made a difference?" "Yes, it did." And this time they all spoke in unison. What's your name or names?" Erasmus asked. "Well, our names have gone through evolution too. We were originally Lefty, Louise, and Pancho." "Who changed it, may I inquire?" "The humans changed it. They started calling us Peter, Paul, and Mary." after some famous humans. I'm not sure if I got the story right. They either had one body with 3 heads or 3 bodies with 1 head. I got confused on that, but they said our middle head had some blonde hairs, so they called us Peter, Paul, and Mary, and it just stuck. Erasmus almost stood up on hearing this, and he said, you interact with humans? Oh, yes, all the time. What? Erasmus asked, shocked. You will know the answer in due time. But now you will have to listen to us, or in a very few moments, you and your love partner will both be dead, like no longer breathing, like no more life, like a dead cat. Do you dig? And here's the funny part. If you decide to live now, it will be because the humans will help to save your life. What are you talking about, Erasmus explained? How humans, the ultimate killing machines, saving our lives? The 3-headed snake seemed to get very angry and sternly looked at Erasmus and said, enough talking. It's not your time to ask questions now. You must decide now for you and your mate, who is too weak to decide for yourself. Do you want to live or do you want to die? It's your choice. Erasmus said in his clearest and strongest voice he could muster, I speak for both my wife and myself. We dig you. We both choose to live. And the 3-headed snake responded, so let it be so. Mary Sue was crying out like she was taking her last breath, and the animal that looked like a lamb brought something that appeared small, soft, and dark-colored over to her. He was so amazed that a lamb would walk up to 2 lions. Sure, they were undernourished and dying, but that wouldn't happen anywhere in the jungle. What is this place, he thought. You must both eat this right now, the 3-headed snake commanded. Erasmus said to Peter, Paul, and Mary, my wife and I are committed to a fasted life. We can no longer eat the flesh of another animal. This is not an animal. It's a magic mushroom. And if your dying mate and you do not eat this in the next 5 seconds, she will die right here in front of you. Is that what you want? It's your choice. And the snake started counting. 5, 4, 3. Erasmus was confronted with one life choice and death choice after another. But again, he chose life. Erasmus quickly grabbed the magic mushroom in his mouth and he said, Mary Sue, bite down on this right now with me, my dear, so we can both live, I think. And they both did, and they both lived. Now, the last part from chapter 12 is the incredible wisdom of Bartholomew, the elephant wiser. It ends with a poem in rhyme that Reverend Gina liked, so I will read it. Bartholomew is a very spiritually wise elephant, and he's singing in the middle of the jungle Christmas songs. He's walking and singing by himself, Edelweiss, Let It Snow, Santa Claus is coming to town. He thinks he's by himself, and he thinks he's a spiritual rap singer, and he imagines that he's rapping out a poem to a large audience in the middle of the jungle. He doesn't realize that Erasmus is hiding in the bushes, listening to him, as he says, now let's have a big round of applause for our newest breakout star, the rapping, singing Bartholomew. And one more thing about Bartholomew. He's just come back from the meeting of masters, where he was at a conference with philosophers and religious leaders to try and figure out how to be more forgiving in the world. He was there because of his wisdom, and they respected him. He had a lot of inner wisdom, Erasmus. So now Erasmus is rapping out, Gina, his rap poem. And it's called Father of Eternal Light. Father of eternal light, you said I would always be bright, whether it was day or night. But I seemed to go wrong when I sang another song. You gave me freedom of will, not free will, because we can never change who we really are. We will always be a superstar, and I will be of good cheer because Father of eternal light is always here. As you wander aimlessly through your physical life with so much anger and so much strife, deep inside you know this isn't the real show, that earth life is not your home. As you roam and roam, and even in a crowd, you still feel alone. You may be big and strong, but that won't last long. You may be successful and rich, but there's always another hitch. There's a different story with a greater glory. Out away from dark illusions, you experience a far different conclusion. Peace and joy with no annoy, that's a far happier toy. Father of eternal light, make me right. The wheel of birth and death has left us feeling bereft. We pray and pray to find a better way. And occasionally, we do get a little sun ray, but it never lasts long. It just goes away. And then comes back another day. But it's still the same old play. I want to find life's answers before I'm old and gray, and then just pass away, still on the sway, in complete disarray, and nothing new to say. Father of eternal light, make me right. He represents your right mind that works on a different time. It's not the physical world of conflict and change, but far beyond where we have another range, although it may seem strange. It's not the world of duality, which is like the wild, wild west, but a oneness reality where we're always living our very best. In our highest truth, we are all sisters and brothers. The same one kind, the same one and another. And although we've forgotten and seem to turn rotten, and some of us were forced to pick white cotton, I say goodbye, dream illusion. I will now accept a different conclusion. Father of eternal light, make me right. You said I would always be bright, whether it was day or night, but I seemed to go wrong when I sang another song. You gave me freedom of will, not free will, because we can never change who we really are. We will always be a superstar, and I will be a good cheer, because Father of eternal light is always here. So now I can say, we will all awaken from our dreaming illusion and from our deep, deep sleep with no more pain and no more weep, but Father of eternal light is always here, so I will be of good cheer, because there really is nothing ever to fear. And with that, I will just simply say goodbye or adieu. Okay, so what is Erasmus Joseph Lion really about? The book Erasmus Joseph Lion, there's a higher law than nature's law of survival, the law of survival of the fittest, or kill or be killed. And the higher law is the spiritual law of love and forgiveness and loving one another. We learn that we have differences, but we are not different, as all the animals do, but in spirit, we are the same. Our lower mind is the mind of the ego, which is vicious and cruel. And we all have that mind, but it is not who we really are. And Erasmus, along with the other lions, have to elevate their consciousness to a higher mind, which they all do with help from inner guidance. And in the process, they learn how to release their unloving thoughts through true forgiveness, like what the Prince of Peace, well, a lot of P's there, what the Prince of Peace preached: forgive and you will be forgiven. Love your neighbor as yourself. The animals find that they're part of an infinite intelligence, which is unconditionally loving source. And this love is unchanged, unchanging, unchangeable forever and ever, for what is unalterable, what is unalterable cannot be changed. So be a good cheer, everyone, because we can never really leave the truth of who we are, and we should be happy. And my friends, this is a little taste of the book. Erasmus Joseph Lion, he goes from a vicious lion in the back to a loving lion in the front. And if it resonates with you, Please feel free to purchase it from the church bookstore here. Gina wanted to help me out, so she purchased a few extra copies. And please purchase it from the bookstore. If you really like it, take a moment and give it a good review on Amazon. If you really like it, share it with your Facebook friends and social media. I also want to invite you all to go to my website, marvinrolnick.com, and you can see some of my writings. I have 200 podcasts. They're also now on Spotify. The podcast is called How to Think About Anything. There are some pictures of my wife and family. Okay, friends, I want to wish you all the success on your path through life. And if you buy the book today, I will autograph it, and just think how valuable that's going to be in 1,000,000 years from now. Now, one last thing. The scientist Carl Sagan said, and I just read it this morning, and I was inspired by it. He said, in all of our searching, the only thing that makes our emptiness bearable is each other. We all need each other. So let's practice being loving and forgiveness like Erasmus Joseph Lion and his friends in the book. So I will close here today and say thank you all for your time, your attention, love and peace, and God bless you all. Thank you.